And sit with her.
If you'd all like to come in and maybe move in a little bit to the center, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure today to welcome you to our Dean's Convocation. This is really an historic event today. It's historic in several ways. Significantly, that we have with us today the Honorable Ezekiel Gatkuoth, who is the head of mission for the government of South Sudan in the United States in Washington, D.C. But it's also historic because today is the conclusion of the historic referendum that will result in the creation of a new country, the government of South Sudan. Today we're going to learn more about South Sudan and its aspirations for democratic institutions and peaceful economic development. It's an exciting time for the South Sudanese and for the whole region, and of course the world is paying very close attention to this election. I believe all of us should be doing the same because so much is at stake. We emphasize the importance here in the Huntsman School of Business of having a global perspective, of understanding the world that we share so that we can be more effective in the efforts that we make to create value, to serve others, and to better the lives of the people that we work with. Today we have the opportunity to gain some insight into an important region of the world that is literally at the birth of a new nation. In June 2005, the late Dr. John Garang, President of the government of South Sudan, appointed Mr. Gatkuoth as the Sudanese People Liberations Movement representative in North America. And in 2006, he was appointed as head of the mission for the government of South Sudan in the United States. To have him with us at such a key time in his country's history is truly an honor. We know he has an incredible travel schedule. He's much in demand, as you might imagine, all over the country. This journey today is part of a tour throughout the western part of the United States, and he needs to be back on Monday in the United Nations. There are many pressing things that came to his schedule, but we're thankful, Mr. Ambassador, that you continue to have us on your schedule and honor us with your visit here today. We're very excited to hear from you. Won't you join me in welcoming the Honorable Ezekiel Gatkuoth, Ambassador. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dean Anderson, for putting this together. I'm so delighted and happy to be here. Also, I would like to appreciate my good friend, Ann Norman, who managed to put this together. As Dean Anderson said it before, I was actually trying to put this off until maybe next week so that I can actually fulfill my responsibilities, the referendum and other things. But thanks to Anne, she was insisting that I must come. And then I told her that, well, I am going to Omaha on Thursday, yesterday. And she said, okay, we are going to get you from Omaha to here Friday morning. And then I'm here, so I came this morning. Of course, English is my fourth or third language, so forgive me if I'm not going to communicate well with you. But if you did not hear anything, please, actually, you can stop me and ask for clarification. I would be talking about Sudan as a whole, but then I will come to Southern Sudan. I'm sure you have heard about Sudan many times. If I can ask you how many of you have heard of Sudan before, if you can raise your hand. How about Darfur? So basically, all of you know about Sudan. Then let me actually briefly say something about Sudan. The history of Sudan is very complex. Maybe some of you might get lost when you are putting things together about Sudan. Sudan is the largest country in Africa. It has a population of 40 million people. We were colonized by many countries. United Kingdom, they were there. Egyptians, they were there. The Turkish, they were there. But the last ruler or rulers were Anglo-Egyptian condominium. And then in 1956, Sudan got its independence from the British. But Sudan, when the British were there, they used to govern it as two countries, or basically two entities. In the north is predominantly Arab, and the south is basically Christians and animists, those who believe in their own traditional gods in Africa. So basically, for you to go to the north, you need to have a departure order or a visa as of today. So you can go north. And then for you to come to the south, you need to have also a departure order. So this is how Sudan was governed by the United Kingdom. And definitely that actually prevent the Islam from spreading to the south. So pretty much the south was practicing Christianity. But when they decided to go and hand over the administration of Sudan to the Sudanese, then they decided to merge the two entities into one. Then we said, no, wait a minute, Sudan is, we are actually not part of northern Sudan. We need to have our own independent country. But they made up their mind, the two joint administration, the Egyptian and the United Kingdom, or the British at that time. Then they decided to force marriage the two against their will. Then before independence in 1956, the South decided to fight in 1955, a war of independence. We fought, I was not there, I was not even born by then. From 1955 until 72, we had an agreement. In that agreement, it was basically saying, okay, let us stop the war. And then you, the Southern Sudanese, you can decide your future using a referendum. You can decide if you wanted to be a part of this Sudan or secede and have your own independent state. That actual agreement lasted for at least 10 years. But the then president of Sudan, Jaffar Namere, decided that, well, this agreement is not a Bible or a Quran. He decided to dishonor it and throw it into the Nile River. The second war started again in 1983. That's the war I participated. And by then, they introduced Sharia, because when the British left, they decided to define Sudan as an Islamic and Arab country. That is the definition of Sudan. Well, if you look at me, and I'm not an Arab, then if you look at my name also, I'm Ezekiel, I'm a Christian. So I don't belong there. If you define Sudan in that definition, then I don't belong to Sudan. I have to find my own way to get a country where I belong to. A simple example, even here in the US, if you define US as just as an example, a Roman Catholic Republic of white people, even those who are actually whites and they are actually Lutheran, they will actually rebel and say, no, that's not the definition of the United States of America. It is all of us united as states, and then we own this country called America. So the history of Sudan has been narrowly painful, and that's why people started a fight, and they wanted to redefine Sudan. So the war ended in 2005 thanks to the US and the people of the United States of America. The students like you, when President Bush was elected, then he was sworn in, church leaders and community organizations, plus the horrible incident which happened in New York and Pentagon, mobilized the whole world against the North, because Osama bin Laden was in Sudan from 91 until 96. So the two parties, the North and the South, were forced to have an agreement in 2005. And that agreement is what we are implementing. The CPA, it is Comprehensive Peace Agreement. It was signed in Kenya. And in that agreement was meant to address two issues. One is to redefine Sudan into a better Sudan for everybody. Let us redefine Sudan as a democratic, secular, united Sudan for all of us. So let us have democratic transformation in Sudan. That was one. The second objective in that agreement was to allow the Southern Sudanese to decide their own future through a referendum if they wanted to be a part of this Sudan or they wanted to secede and have their own independent state. We had an agreement that ended the longest civil war in Africa. Then we continued to implement this agreement from 2005 until now. But we, the Sudanese, we have failed to transform Sudan because the North, they are not allowing this transformation to take place. They are still continuing with Islamization and Arabization, basically. For me to be in Khartoum, I have to be given a special status. Basically, there is a commission established in Khartoum for non-Muslims. So if you are caught dressing inappropriately, I don't know who can define the way I want to dress, but somebody in Khartoum is defining the way you wanted to dress, or what you can drink, or not to party as much as you want. So it is still there. So capital of Sudan doesn't belong to all of us. It belongs to some individuals. If you wanted to stay there, you have to be protected. So definitely we have failed to transform Sudan, and that's why Southern Sudanese, they are now having a referendum, and it has started on the 9th of January 2011. And in that referendum, it is basically saying we are going to be a part of Sudan or we secede and have our own independent state. I have voted because here in the US, they have 8 centers where the referendum is taking place. Washington, D.C., Boston, Massachusetts, Omaha, Nebraska, Nashville, Tennessee, Dallas, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, Seattle, Washington, and Chicago, Illinois. These are the 8 centers that the polling is taking place. It is actually going to end tomorrow, Saturday. But so far, it is very clear that the referendum is going to lead to an independent state. So there is actually other pending issues that we need to address. Now, if we are going to have this peaceful divorce between the two countries or the two entities, if you look at it, all the resources in the Sudan are from the south. 90% of the oil that is being exported to China and Malaysia and other countries is from the south. And then you look at the minerals, most of the minerals are from the south. Agricultural land is also from the south. So basically, the north is developed using the resources of the south, and the south is underdeveloped. So what will happen after the divorce? Will the north allow us to go with all these resources? And the issue of RBA, there's a place called RBA, it is between the north and the south. This place was transferred by the British in 1905 to the north to be administered in the north because it is a bit far away from the south. But now the north is not allowing them to be transferred back to southern Sudan through a referendum. So this is an area where we are having some dispute, and we are going to have an agreement. Generally, we have agreed in principle that we are going to resolve all those issues before the 9th of July 2011, because the 9th of July is when the CPA or the agreement is coming to an end. And then on the 10th of July, we are going to have an independent state in Africa. So we have agreed in principle. The question I was asking, if the resources are in the south and north has no resources, will the north allow us to go? The answer is no. Definitely, because this is basically their livelihood. They will not allow us to go. But do they have another choice? They have another option. The answer is no. They will be forced to allow us to go. But as a southerner, our strategy is to make sure that we don't actually have a violent divorce. We need to continue with the relations with the north so that they benefit from the resources that we are having. And also we benefit from them. Because if you look at it, the oil is in the south, the pipeline is going northward. We are a landlocked country. So we need the pipeline, but they need the oil. So that can link us together so that we can benefit from it, from the oil. They will allow us to go reluctantly so that we benefit from all these resources. Now we are going to have a new nation in Africa. Yes, there are challenges that we will be facing. If you look at it, we have been fighting. Myself, I don't know how to run anything at all. Unfortunately, I'm posted in Washington, D.C. to run the office in Washington, D.C., and also in New York. I do both. But I never had any experience of running a diplomatic mission, basically. Personally, I was illiterate until 1989. I didn't go to school. When I joined the rebellion in 1984, I don't know how to read and write my own language, let alone English. So we are actually having difficulties in running the government when we went in 2005, because most of us, we grew up in the bushes of southern Sudan. But we managed to be taught by senior commanders who knew how to read and write, and they can tell us ABCDs. But after we took over in 2005, we have a lot of friends from the West and also from neighboring countries who are helping us. And the capacity of Southern Sudanese was built, and now they are running their own affairs. You can actually build the capacity of people if you are actually wishing them good luck. But if you are wishing them bad luck, then definitely you will exploit them not to prosper. So I think if you can help us to build our capacity, then we can actually run this new nation successfully. If you compare us with most of African leaders or most of African countries when they gained their independence in the 60s, we are in a better position than them. Simple example, Congo. When they gained their independence in the 60s, they were having only 3 university graduates: the Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Ambassador to the UN. These are the 3 people who were having college degrees. The rest, they were high school graduates. But if you look at Southern Sudan, we have a lot of people who are highly educated. So I think definitely challenges will be there. But with your help, you can help us. We have a lot of potentials, business-wise. If you look at Southern Sudan, we have gold, we have cement, we have oil, we have a land, agricultural land where you can actually invest heavily in. We have timber, we have teak trees. We have a lot of resources. Now we wanted to diversify our economy. And instead of relying on oil alone, we can actually tap into other resources that we are having. And I think with your help, we can definitely tapping into all these resources. You can do a lot, mobilizing investors to come and invest in Southern Sudan, and also mobilizing the international community to make sure that this nation is a viable nation, just like any nation in the world. Definitely, anything that you needed to do, you need to pray first. There is nothing that you can do in this world without the divine intervention. You have to call your God. And the number one that I can ask from you is to pray for us so that we can have a peaceful referendum, that we can have a peaceful divorce with the North, so that we can have good relations with the North. And then we can contribute to the world peacefully. We can end wars in northern Uganda, many countries that are having difficulties, because we can use our experience to help bring peace to other countries. Definitely, this agreement, it is because of your participation, as I was saying it before, writing to your congressmen and women, senators. These are the people who have been helping us in Southern Sudan. You can continue to write to them to make sure that we are helped so that we can catch up with the rest of the world. I think from there, I will stop here and I will entertain some questions, and thank you very much for listening.
Well, let's open it up for some questions. Who'd like to ask the first question?
I was just wondering how long you've been working in D.C. and what brought you here to work there.
I've been working in D.C. During the war and after the war. I was actually given this as a responsibility in 1998, mobilizing our communities here and also in Canada to contribute to war, raising money for the war. And then after the agreement, I was given this responsibility, again as a head of mission for the government of Southern Sudan to the US and to the UN in 2005. So I've been doing this.
What do you perceive the biggest problem, other than the oil, what do you see as the biggest problem of Southern Sudan seceding from North Sudan?
Between the two or just within us in the South?
Between the two, like what do you see as the potential argument?
Well, the issue of border between the North and the South is another problem that we are going to be facing, because the problem with the North is actually the border has been moving southward. If the oil is discovered, they move the border. So now we have to actually call the United Kingdom to come and tell us where are the borders, especially in the areas that we are actually disputing. But 80% of the border between the North and the South we have agreed to, but just only 20%, and we have called the United Kingdom to help us because they have the maps, the colonial maps. This is one problem that we are going to be having. The issue of our citizens is also another problem that we will be facing, because there are Southerners in the North who wanted to continue to work there because they have their benefits there, they have good jobs. And there are Northerners in the South also. They are having shops and their businesses are booming, and they wanted to continue. But for us, we have no problem. We told them that Northerners in the South, you will continue to have your own citizenship, and even we allow them to vote in the South. But the North is saying immediately when you vote for separation, you are stateless. You need to move out of Northern Sudan. So this is one of the things that we have to tackle before the 9th of July, 2011. And many others, the Nile water, Egypt is involved. Many neighboring countries are also involved. But 45% of the Nile water is in the South. So how are you going to change the 1929 Nile Basin Initiative? What do you do with it? And how would be the reaction of the other countries? This is something that we will actually work on, and the issue of currency and debts and assets. Sudan is owing the World Bank and IMF $36 billion. So what do you do with those debts and the assets of the country? So these are the things that I'm part of the team negotiating with the North in this.
Ezekiel, thanks very much. As you know, I have about 400 questions for you. One question.
Okay.
I think it's an easier, more interesting question for everyone. So, the choice to secede from the North is what most people are now going to be voting on.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious what you see of John Graham's vision of the United New Sudan, particularly the fall of that idea. And its implications for other countries where they have marginalized populations. How do you see that then as impacting other countries? John Garang's vision for a new Sudan to unite the North and the South was seen as being a very innovative idea, particularly across not only Sudan but other countries like it that have very different ethnic and religious populations. The fall of that idea and the growth of this idea of succession, how do you think that will reverberate for the rest of the countries in Africa?
The vision of late John Garang, who I really admired and respect, and he actually taught me, so who I am, it is basically because of him. I was a separatist before, but all of us, when we went to the bush, we were converted into believing in his vision of new Sudan in a new basis. That's what he always say. Let us actually have a united, democratic, secular Sudan for all. But short of that, that's what he always say. If this one is not achieved, then Southern Sudan will go for independence. You know, he has a famous statement because he knew his people. Majority of our soldiers, they were separatists. 90% of the songs that we used to sing during the war are for separation. But he has been telling us when he's graduating recruits that I know you want separation, but remember there are other people who are marginalized like you in Darfur, in Nuba Mountains, in southern Brunei, in eastern Sudan, even in far north. But let us fight and reach where you wanted to reach, the border between the north and the south. And if you fight all the way to that border, you stop there and say, no, this is it. Those of us who wanted to have this united Sudan, we will continue to fight. But if we are going to be 2 or 3 and we realize everybody is actually stopping from the border because they want to take the south away, then we will return back and come to you. So the vision is conditional. It is not just basically committed to the new Sudan per se. He's basically let us actually transform Sudan because he's actually for a total transformation of Sudan into a better Sudan for all of us. Short of that, then we go. Well, Southern Sudan actually has a unique history. We were actually 2 in 1. We were forced to this marriage by the colonial powers at that time. You know, most of the history in Africa, if you compare us with other countries, Southern Sudan is very unique. It is not going to set any precedent for other countries to demand separation or independence. I think it is a very unique case. That's what I can do.
You talked about the hope for a peaceful divorce between the North and the South, but based on the history of Sudan, it's been engrossed in conflict for over 30 years. So, what do you think of the possibility of actually having a peaceful divorce? Do you feel that the North is committed to having a peaceful divorce, or do you think that there will be just as much violence and conflict if the South secedes as there was before?
I am actually very optimistic that we are going to have peaceful divorce because, one, the North has no choice but to accept the reality of the situation. The whole world is united behind the referendum. They are supporting the referendum 100%, and the outcome of the referendum will be accepted and recognized. So the whole world is united. That's internationally. Domestically, they are fighting a war in Darfur. If they are going to have another war in the south, and Nuba Mountain and southern Blue Nile, and eastern Sudan, can they sustain this? The answer is no. They are actually going to be committing suicide if they are going to do this. So they are actually cornered. And I think the only way to do this, or to get out of this, is to accept the reality of the situation. That's why Bashir went to Juba, and he said publicly that regardless of the outcome, I will accept it. And let us actually look into, he's talking about the future relations between the two countries now. He's not talking about the outcome of the referendum. He knew the outcome of the referendum, because even in southern Sudan, I never met anybody who said that I will vote for unity. Even here in the US, never met anybody who actually, who is advocating for unity. So I think they are forced to have a peaceful divorce with us. And strategically, if they are going to have a bad divorce, I don't think it is actually going to be in their interest, economically. So I think they have accepted the reality of the situation. Yeah.
For anyone who would like to invest in Sudan, or anyone who's interested in maybe helping Sudan in a nonprofit manner, what is the first resource that they should go to?
Maybe you can answer it, Anne?
I would say contact the economic attaché at the mission, at the chief. It will become an embassy when they have a nation. So right now it's a mission in Washington, D.C., but it's essentially the embassy. I'd speak to them. I would speak to me. That's actually part of my job. That's why I know the ambassador, and explore the opportunities from the embassy perspective.
Just to add is that you definitely need to also explore what area you are interested in, and see for yourself. If I don't want to direct you invest in agriculture or in oil or in gold or in cement or in hotel industry. So, but all of these areas are booming, and it will be up to you to decide what area you are interested in.
Say one more thing.
Sure.
I'd also look at other countries that have experienced conflict, like Sierra Leone, Liberia. I would look at Cambodia. I would compare some of those nations that have had conflict in the recent past and what they've done to economically develop, where they had success and where they didn't, because this is going to be very similar, especially look at countries that have similar resources like Sierra Leone. That's a good place to start as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about the challenge of creating a new government and doing it in such a way that corruption and exploitation aren't deeply embedded in the new institutions that you create.
This is actually a very excellent question. When you are forming a government, you need to make sure that everybody is actually represented in that government. If you are not seeing yourself there, either through your tribal affiliation or through your regional affiliation, then definitely you will have a problem, because the government must represent all. And we have been actually really keen in making sure that we have a government that actually represent our communities. The issue of corruption in southern Sudan, the good thing about it, we are talking about it openly. People are writing about it, people are openly talking about it. But compared to the north, they are actually hiding it. They are not actually publicly discussing it. If you look at the government of southern Sudan, especially my President Salva Kiir, he managed to even dismiss his 2 finance ministers because of corruption allegations, and senior officials in the government. If you compare us with some African countries, they don't do that. So we are talking about it, we are fighting it, and we need to be helped, because the reason why you have corruption is because institutions are weak, especially Anti-Corruption Commission. If you have no tools to investigate, or you have no rules and regulations, and people who can actually do the work, because the capacity of the institution is very weak, then definitely you will not be able to fight corruption. But if the institutions are built so that you can investigate, not just alleged, but investigate and know the details of what had happened and prosecute, then definitely you will reduce corruption. Even here in America, it is there, but rules and regulations and the way to fight corruption are there. If you are caught, definitely you will pay the consequences. So we are actually really tackling it in southern Sudan, because if you look at sometimes when you have been fighting for a long time without salaries, like when I went to Bush in 1984, I don't know how old I was, but I was old enough to shoot. I never get paid until 2006. I never get paid. So imagine if I was 40 years old, then by now I would be 67. Then I didn't get paid, and maybe I have 10 wives, and then 10 wives maybe times 3 children each, 30 children. Then how am I going to feed them? My salary is maybe $3,000 a month. So you will be forced to take something from the government. And culturally, when I have a job, it belongs to all of us. Your uncle, your niece, everybody will come to the house. And you cannot actually tell them now, you leave my house. They will create songs for you. You will never get married. Even your children will not marry that. So you have to live as a community. Eat together, share whatever you have. And then if you don't have enough, this is where the corruption is coming in. And we are trying to address it also by trying to make sure that people are given some responsibility so that they can feed their children. And even your wives, they can be given some responsibility so that they can gain income. And I think this is where you can also help us, because I know a friend of mine is having 67 wives and 285 children. He's a friend of mine in southern Sudan. So if you have a car per a wife times 67 wives, then 285 children, I'm sure your salaries will not meet the requirement. Yeah. So we are fighting corruption, and we are allowing people to join us to fight this corruption.
What did the UN think of this separation, and what kind of support are they offering?
They are actually 100% on board. The United Nations Security Council, definitely all of them, they are united to making sure that the process has to be free, fair, and transparent, and then the outcome will be accepted and recognized by the whole world. So I will be in New York on Monday, meeting with the Security Council members, Monday until Wednesday. So they are all united. And so far, the process has been very peaceful. They are on board. Yep.
In the past, when African nations achieved independence, those who never progressed or never developed were those who didn't educate the population. What kind of plans or ideas do the Southern Sudanese leaders have to educate the population as a whole, to make education widespread and a priority in that nation?
Education is a problem. As I was telling you before, 80% of our population in the South, they are illiterate. 80%. Just only 20% are the ones who are actually educated. And I think this is where we are investing heavily in education. But remember that we have scarce resources that we are using to build, our institutions, trying to also build roads and basic infrastructures that we are trying to do. So I think we are trying our best, but I think we need definitely the support of the world to help us. And I would really throw it back to you as students who are in this beautiful university to really think of how you can help Southern Sudanese catch up with the rest of the world. You can actually send 10, 20 students during the summer to help us. Go to the villages, because I believe that we are also God's children. You know, if I'm suffering, it is the same suffering that you are having. And if I'm happy, you will also be happy. We are all the same. Any problem here in the US, it is a problem of the world, and any problem in Africa, it is also the problem of the world. So we can really help Southern Sudanese to catch up with the rest of the world, educationally here. I believe that.
Is there any plans to have state-run industry, or is everything going to be done through private enterprise?
What do you mean by that?
Like, are any of it, like mining or the oil, is it going to be run through the government, or is it all going to be done through private companies?
No, it is actually going to be a joint venture, yeah, between companies and government doing it. But so some companies are running them, but regulated by the government. Yeah, that's how it has been. It's been working. Yep.
You mentioned in your opening remarks how the U.S. and others have helped the South Sudanese. Could you tell a little bit of that story?
Yes. In 2001, definitely, when President Bush was elected, definitely I was actually saying it, that he managed to be mobilized by the communities, the church leaders like Franklin Graham and Jerry Fowler and many others who were working with us. And then 9/11 also raised serious concern about what was happening in Sudan. And then President Bush took this upon himself. And he has a nickname in the White House. He has been called the desk officer of Sudan, because every morning he would want to ask all of his senior advisors that what is happening with Southern Sudan, what is happening, until he left the office. The last people that he managed to see, the foreign dignitaries, are us, myself, and my president, January 15th. 5 days later on, then President Obama took over. He has been so consistent, and we managed to see him in the Oval Office 5 times. He has been inviting us every year to see him, trying to make sure that the agreement is intact and it is being implemented. The same thing with Obama. When he took over, I met him 4 times now. And then he has been consistent in making sure that this agreement is not about Bush. It is not partisan. You know, I've been in Washington for a long time, and I can actually tell you, and sorry to say this, but most of the issues that are actually uniting Republican and Democrats is actually Sudan. Most of them, you have Donald Payne, Frank Wolf, Senator Sam Brownback, working with John Kerry. They are all united when it comes to Sudan. I don't know about other issues, but when it comes to Sudan, they are one. So the same thing with Bush and Obama. When it comes to Sudan, they wanted to do more together. Obama is even doing it now more. Bush was also doing it. I don't know about political differences in this room, but forgive me if I actually cross the line. But I have to say what is actually at the bottom of my heart, regardless of how much you love President Bush or you hate him, or Obama. But this is what they have done to us, and they are heroes when it comes to the eyes of Southern Sudanese. And it is because of the students like you and church leaders and the community organizations mobilizing the grassroots and creating awareness. Like George Clooney now, he's in Juba. He came back, when was it? On the 11th. He was supposed to go with me, but the first visit I was with him. I took him with John Prendergrass. And then in this referendum, I told him, you need to go. He was debating on making a movie and going to Sudan. I'm sure he would have actually made a lot of money making a movie than going to Sudan. But he said, okay, Ezekiel, I'll go because I have nothing to help you with, but to actually use my fame to create more awareness and so that people can listen and help you. So he went. He just came back on the 11th of January. He was there on the 6th. Made sure that his schedule is organized well, managed to meet all the people that he wanted to meet, and he went to Abyei, the disputed area. So these are the individuals helping us, and that's why I'm actually so grateful and happy. People like Susan Rice, who are actually so committed. She will call me in the middle of the night, Ezekiel, what do you want us to do? Here in the UN, we are debating this tomorrow about Sudan. So the momentum has been actually so great and good to us all. So this is what I basically can share. But there are more stories, people who are so committed to helping us. Yeah. And you can also stop me if I'm...
No, you're fine.
Okay.
I will, but you're fine.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood or some pivotal or important events in your life that led you to this point?
Well, sometimes I don't like it to talk about myself. But I have been going through difficulties, and went through war, and I've gone through a lot, but I think the experiences that I went through made me to be so determined in trying to help my people. I'm actually feeling like I'm not doing enough because there are other people who are so, less fortunate, like myself. I'm here, lights, water. I went to the village and I was carrying some water, this bottled water. And then I overstayed and I ran out of water. And I know most of my people, they are actually drinking out of the river. Because I got used to this comfort, then I say, well, if I'm out of water, what is next? Then I join them in drinking straight from the river. So if you really compare me and those who are there, sometimes you can really feel their pain because even though you went through, they are going through more than you. You cannot even say that I have suffered. I didn't. I have witnessed killings. I have witnessed many things. But they have witnessed more horrors than myself. But I grew up in the village. My father, before he was killed, he has cattle. Take care of cattle and goats. And, I was very happy. I don't know anything about paying bills, electricity be cutting off, and so I'm just living like a free human being. Sometimes these stories like this, you miss them, because in the cattle camp, you just worry about taking care of your cattle, you milk them, immediately drink them, and the life goes on. But now you're using airplanes, cars. Sometimes when I was in the village, we were thinking that it is God which is actually moving at night. When you are seeing these, what do you call like these airplanes? Huh? Yeah, no. When the airplanes are moving and the flash. Yeah. So we were thinking that it is God which is actually moving, until I managed to come to America and realize that these are human beings driving or piloting big airplanes. I didn't know. But so happy that life can actually transform itself into something that you never imagined. I never imagined that I would be in the U.S. Never heard of the U.S. until in the 80s, when I left my village and came to Ethiopia in 84.
Is the
press free to criticize the government now, and will anything change in the future? What's the freedom of the press like in Sudan?
In the north, it is difficult. You cannot criticize. There is actually a lack of freedom of association, freedom of expression. But in the south, you can actually basically say anything you want. You can criticize the government, and nothing will happen to you. This is what we have been missing. Freedom of expression and association, and that's the difference between the north and the south. Yeah.
This has been an extraordinary event for us, and one of the privileges I have as dean is I get to ask the last question.
Okay.
So the question I have is, who are your inspiration? Who's your inspiration? Is it Nelson Mandela? Is it Gandhi? Is it Martin Luther King? Is it George Washington? Thomas Jefferson? Who do you look to for inspiration, both in terms of thinking about this new country, but also in terms of your personal view of life?
I have many people who inspired me. One of them is George Washington, and I was talking about it in high school. This man decided to even forget his own life and committed to the nation. He didn't even have children of his own. But all of the people of the United States of America, he was actually seeing them as his children. And he fought to free many people, millions of people, compared to himself and his children. This commitment really inspired me. Abraham Lincoln, when I came to the US, I read about them. So committed to making sure that people are equal, free. This is what we have been actually fighting for in Sudan, because some people actually think that they are superior than you. People like Nelson Mandela, he was caged for 27 years, and then all of a sudden he said, let us actually have a rainbow nation, regardless of what you have done to me, even reconciling with the judge who actually caged him or actually jailed him for 27 years. They had the first breakfast. People like John Garang Mabior, my former leader, he fought for 21 years. He's actually a highly educated person. He went to Iowa State University, got his PhD, went to Sudan, decided to stop, teaching because he was offered a job to teach and make lives. He's actually having a PhD in economics, agricultural economics. So he would have actually made a lot of money even here in the US. Left all of them, went to the bush with us, continued to fight until 2005, had an agreement signed. He told me, Ezekiel, I want you to come and go with me to Khartoum. I say, I never actually see Khartoum since I was born. He said, no, that's good because you will have the experience of seeing it. We went on the 8th of July, landed in Khartoum, never seen it before, don't even speak Arabic myself. But he told me, I want you to come with me. He was sworn in on the 9th of July. And then on the 10th, we started the work. He wanted me to continue to actually work in his office. I say, John, I don't have skills to work in your office. I don't even know the language. And these people, they don't actually use English. He said, Ezekiel, the same thing is actually happening with me. I don't even know the language very well, but let us work together. 21 days, I left on the 22nd of July. This was the last conversation I had in his office. Told me to go back to Washington, D.C., continue with the struggle, mobilize our friends, people like Frank Wolf, Donald Payne, Tom Tancredo, Roger Winter, Brian De Silva, and many others. And then 21 days later, on the 30th of July, he died. He did not even get his first paycheck. 21 days in the office compared to 21 years in the bush fighting. That really touched me. And I said, if John Garang cannot get paid, then who am I to complain about getting money? He did not even get paid. And he actually fought for 21 years, 21 days before he actually can get his paycheck. He died. these are people who actually really inspired me to do more.
Well, Mr. Ambassador, you've inspired us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Steve, could you bring that, we've got something for you.
Okay.
This is a little memento for the Huntsman School of Business.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
much luck to and much success in all you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.